The alien woman stood tall, with her glowing violet eyes piercing through the dimly lit chamber where the human ambassador sat, his hands folded on the polished black table before him, his expression unreadable, yet the weight of his species' survival pressed heavily upon his shoulders, as the presence of this strange yet undeniably powerful being filled the air with an otherworldly energy that made every molecule in his body tremble, though he refused to show it because he knew that fear was a weapon as much as it was a weakness, and he would not allow it to be used against him, even though the very essence of the being before him radiated an unspoken dominion over all that he had ever known or could possibly comprehend. As she leaned forward, her translucent silver hair cascading over her shoulders like streams of liquid light, her lips parting slightly as her voice flowed like a melody that did not belong to this universe and yet held an authority that demanded recognition. All fear Mayat, you do not why human. Her words were not a question in the way that humans understood questions. They were an assertion, a demand wrapped in curiosity. Her species had traversed the cosmos for eons, their empire stretching across entire galaxies, bending civilizations to their will, without resistance, for to resist was to be unmade by forces beyond mortal comprehension, and yet here in this cold, sterile chamber sat a lone representative of a species that should by all accounts be trembling, prostrating, begging for mercy. He sat still, unwavering, his pulse steady, his gaze unbroken, and in that moment something unfamiliar flickered in the depths of her mind. An emotion her kind had no name, for something that gnawed at the edges of her understanding as she studied this being who defied the natural order of things. The ambassador exhaled slowly, though not in resignation, but in quiet contemplation, his thoughts like planets caught in orbit around an unseen force. As he lifted his gaze to meet hers fully, the silence between them stretching longer than should have been possible without collapsing under the weight of expectation, and yet he let it stretch, let it breathe, let it carve its meaning into the very fabric of this exchange, until he finally spoke, his voice steady like the unwavering pulse of a distant star. Because fear is a choice and I do not choose it. The alien woman's gaze narrowed slightly, the glow in her eyes pulsing as if stirred by unseen current. Something about his answer struck a chord deep within her, something that made the endless centuries of her people's conquests feel strangely insignificant, as if they had misunderstood something fundamental about the nature of existence itself. Your kind is fragile, your kind is fleeting, your kind has barely touched the edge of the void, and yet you stand before me unbowed, as if you believe that you are my equal, when all logic dictates that you are not. The ambassador did not flinch, did not falter, for he knew that this was the moment upon which everything depended. You mistake power for supremacy, but power alone does not command respect. It does not inspire devotion, it does not create something greater than itself. True supremacy is not in how many worlds kneel before you, but in how many rise because of you, and that is something your kind has yet to understand. A silence followed that was not empty, but brimming with unspoken truths and possibilities. The alien woman regarded him with an intensity that could have shattered lesser minds, yet there was no malice in her gaze now, only something that could have been curiosity, or perhaps even the first stirrings of respect. And though the fate of humanity still hung in the balance in that moment, the ambassador knew that he had planted a seed that might one day change the course of the cosmos itself. The silence stretched between them, heavy yet electric, as the alien woman's eyes glowed brighter, their violet radiance flickering like the birth of a star in some distant, unknown quadrant of the universe. She had conquered countless species, stood upon the bones of civilizations that had crumbled before her will, witnessed entire planetary histories extinguished in an instant like fragile embers snuffed beneath the weight of inevitability. Yet here sat a humana being so minuscule in comparison to her own vast existence, who refused to tremble, who refused to yield, who refused to grant her the satisfaction of seeing fear reflected in his eyes. Her kind had never encountered such defiance. Fear was the universal constant, the fundamental truth upon which power was built, the currency of control that made entire galaxies bow before her empire, and yet he denied her this tribute. denied the natural order of things, denied what should have been a foregone conclusion. It was infuriating. It was fascinating. It was dangerous. A ripple of something unfamiliar coursed through her thoughts, something she could not name, something she should have dismissed as irrelevant, yet it lingered, nagging at the edges of her mind like a phantom whisper. She had seen resistance before. She had seen defiance born of desperation. She had seen rebellions burn hot and fast only to be crushed beneath the weight of superior force. Yet this was not desperation, not rebellion, not even arrogance. This was something far more insidious, something far more unbreakable. Conviction. Her silver lips parted, and when she spoke, her voice no longer carried the unchallenged authority of a being accustomed to absolute dominion. Your words are meaningless without power to enforce them. The ambassador did not flinch, did not recoil, did not allow even a sliver of doubt to creep into the space between them. Instead, he exhaled, slow and deliberate, as if measuring the weight of his response, as if understanding that every syllable he uttered now would echo far beyond this chamber, beyond this moment, beyond the fragile existence of his species. Power is not only the ability to destroy but the ability to endure. We are not here to kneel, nor are we here to threaten. We are here because we have survived, we have suffered, we have lost, we have rebuilt, and we will continue to do so with or without your permission, because existence is not something we ask for, it is something we claim. The alien woman leaned back slightly, her luminous gaze still locked onto him, studying him as if for the first time, as if seeing beyond the fragile flesh and bones that composed his form, seeing into something deeper, something more elusive, something that neither time nor conquest nor annihilation could erase. Your species is weak, your technology is primitive, your understanding of the universe is laughable compared to mine, and yet you speak as though you are inevitable. Because we are. The words left his lips like a prophecy, like a truth so deeply woven into the fabric of existence that even she could not deny it. Humanity had clawed its way from the dirt, had bled and burned and broken, and yet it had endured, not because of power, not because of superiority, but because of the uncheckable will to continue, to push forward, to reach beyond the limits of what was known and grasp for something greater. The alien woman's glowing eyes dimmed slightly, as if some understanding gone she had never sought, one she had never needed, was beginning to take root within her. Perhaps you are inevitable, she finally said, her voice softer now, more measured, more uncertain. The ambassador allowed himself a small, knowing smile, because in that moment he understood what she did not yet realize. She was afraid. Not of humanity, not of their weapons, not of their fleets, not of their fragile existence, but of the idea that she had been wrong. The idea that power was not enough. The idea that something else, something more, was required to truly shape the universe. And for the first time in her endless existence, she did not know what to do. The chamber's silence stretched once more, but this time it was not oppressive. It was not a weight, it was a space, a possibility, an opening through which something new might take root. The ambassador stood from his chair, and with the same unwavering certainty that had carried his species through the darkness of its own history, he spoke one final time before turning to leave. You will see. And with that he stepped away, leaving behind an empire that had never known fear, yet now stood at the precipice of something far greater and far more terrifying than fear could ever be. Doubt.